Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadasiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Welcome to our 36th Saturday online Kashmir Cultural Heritage Awareness Series. We have with us Professor J.Jeganaathan, and the topic is Takshashila, the world's first university, Kashmir's past glory. We thank Shri for our ongoing series and offer our namaskaram to His Holiness Sri Shankara Vijayendra Saraswati Swamigal. Kanchi Mutt has always been in the forefront, modestly working with the sole aim of national integration, spiritual enlightenment, and preserving the uniqueness of Kashmir, as Kashmir is our cultural heritage. We are very pleased to present Dr. Jeganaathan Ji, Assistant Professor of National Security at the Central University of Jammu. Prior to this, he worked as a research fellow in the Internal and Regional Security Program at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, a New Delhi-based independent think tank. He holds a PhD in European Studies from the School of International Studies at JNU, and his thesis topic is Dynamics of European Security After Cold War, a case study of the enlargement of North Atlantic Organization, or NATO. An avid observer of international security and public affairs, with focus on South Asia security and strategic issues. Thank you, Professor Jagan Ji, for taking time off amidst your appearances during ongoing Ukraine war and analysis all over the media. We are very pleased to welcome you once again, and please take over.
It is indeed I would say, a pride to be part of this series, which Sri Shankarji has been organizing this 36th series without any break and with the same vigor, with the one motive that to highlight and emphasize the linkages that Bharat is having. And it is indeed another great privilege for me to introduce a new topic in the series. So far, you might have heard about the socio-cultural or spiritual linkages that connects the different regions of Bharat. This topic, which highlights how a knowledge embedded with the cultural, spiritual linkages do have a strong binding and linkages from north to south. This particular linkages has been less emphasized over the period. As a result, what happened, there are certain other divisive narratives has overshadowed this particular emphasis of linkages. Let me thank the organizer and the Kanchi Kamakoti Seva Foundation, United States of America, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. The topic of the day, which I am going to share my thoughts and discuss, is that the Takshashila, that's the Kashmir's past glory. And the Takshashila is one of the oldest, or I would say, the first university which was established in the world. When you say university, which encompasses the people across coming scholars, the people across the world gather together in particular point and reside there and explore their intellectual inquisitiveness, build knowledge, and disseminate that knowledge. The ancient period, around 300 BC, a university was established in the Bharat, the northwestern of Bharat, a place called Takshashila. Takshashila means it's a cutting of stones, So the city looks like a cutting of stones, and that's where this university was established. You can see in the picture that these are the architecture of the university at that time, which you can make it out that how grandeur that university looked like. It was established by King Bharata, younger brother of Lord Ram. As per the scriptures, it is mentioned that Bharata established this university on the name of his younger son, Taksha. If you look at the ancient history, this land is full of such universities from north to south and east to west. But only we heard about the few universities. Starting from Ratnagiri University, which is also one of the oldest university that world has ever seen. Then Vikramshila University, you had Somapura University, Villabai University, Pushpagiri University, Jagatala University, of course, Nalanda University. These are the universities were established across the various parts of the country. India was the only country to have university education in the ancient times. At the time when the rest of the world were hunter and gatherers, and we have built an institution that would promote knowledge, build knowledge, promote knowledge, and diffuse the knowledge for the humankind or the well-being of humankind. These temples of knowledge, we call it, these were all the centers of learning for people from various parts of the world, irrespective of their religion or irrespective of their caste or greed or wherever, whatever the state socio-economic status. And only prayer request is to the inquisitiveness to explore the various domains of the knowledge. Next slide, please. See, you look at the map. See, when you say the Takshashila, it is now currently located in the present day Pakistan, which is almost some 180 kilometers from northwest towards northwest western part of the Islamabad. And today the area looked like devastated and a shamble, and it is the most underdeveloped in today's context. But when you look at this Bharat map, what we see is that the map which we see is a medieval map, perhaps, or the ancient map was largely ignored. So our any construction or any analysis of the when you talk about the such linkages, we need to the reference should be, according to me, the reference should be the ancient map, and that's the actual the physical representation of or the geographical representation of of our country. So that's the reason that people, you may wonder whether the Takshashila falls in the Kashmir region. That must be a question. That why I have mentioned this as a past glory of Kashmir, because the Kashmir kingdom, when you talk about Kashmir kingdom, we talk about or we imagine the geographical boundaries of the such kingdom confined to what the modern or medieval map, the boundaries which drawn in the modern medieval map. Rather, it is far stretched up to the city of Kandahar, to include even the Persian, the boundaries in the Persian region. So that's actually the Kashmir kingdom was ruled even during the Gupta's period and earlier period. Next slide, please. So this map gives you an idea about that, how the Kashmir looks like. And this is where the present day the Takshashila is located, as I mentioned in earlier, just ahead of this Islamabad. Now, why we need to connect this Takshashila to the Kashmir's past glory? A few years back, 4 years back, when the China has launched this Belt and Road Initiative in way back in 2013, since then there has been a consistent attempt by perhaps with the support of the help of the Chinese intellectual group to appropriate this Takshashila as part of the Pakistan's knowledge system or the Pakistan's historical heritage. Where if you could, it's a common, it's very self-evident that anyone can make it out that then the Pakistan did not exist at the time, but there has been a consistent attempt to appropriate the legacy or the historical heritage of the Takshashila connect to the Pakistan. In fact, it was destroyed by the forces which had come from the Central Asian continent. And that makes me to think that, where to connect this Takshashila into the larger debate of our the Bharat narratives in terms of the knowledge generation. When the domestic debate, it looks like whenever we talk about the university system in ancient India, we always know, or we always give a lot of emphasis on the Nalanda University, and we ignore the a larger extent the universities which was established in the northern part, like Takshashila, or even the southern part, the university which was established in the which was functioning from the Kanchipuram. These are the universities were not were least explored. The historians have least explored, and that gives an enough opportunity for us to explore further to understand what sort of system that existed in the ancient system, and how it has helped into constructing the larger narratives. The Takshashila, as I mentioned, it was established in 700 BC, and there more than 10,000 students from all over the world studied on more than 60 subjects. And these subjects varied from music, medicines, surgery, warfare, military science, warfare, astrology, and but the foundation courses which they were offered, or the students have to study, is the grammars, Vedic scripts. These are the basic texts that they have to go through. That's the foundation courses. And after that courses are done, the students master those subjects, then they will be graduated to study whatever options that they wanted to go for a medicine, or they wanted to go for a military science, or the architecture, or music, or other sort of subjects. The learning system is Gurukul. See, Gurukul, basically it has been misinterpreted in many ways, particularly in South for the last 70 years, that how it has been misinterpreted. The Gurukul is actually, the literal meaning of Gurukul means the residential learning system. And so these universities have a residential campus. So it's a residential university where the teacher and the scholars or the students, they lived there and lived together. Then they studied the respective subjects. And that gives an enough bondage where the guru and shishya parampara was established, where the knowledge can be learned consistently without any break. That's one of the system of learning. The Gurukul is the major system of the learning. In fact, the students from faraway places were given a residential accommodation to stay there, and along with the respective gurus whom they wanted to study. And the guru, on the other hand, had a rigorous test given to these disciples, or you call it the students, to qualify to be a student before giving an opportunity to stay and study. As I mentioned, that the Takshashila was founded by Lord Ram's younger brother Bharata, and these are the kingdoms. It was followed by Alexander, and Mauryan kingdom was established. And when the Mauryan kingdom was established, the scholars like Kautilya were there, and we all know that how the Chanakya's contribution to the uniting the kingdom and establishing a empire, the Gupta Mauryan Empire. Then the last was the Parthians, and there the university was destroyed by the raiders from the Central Asian provinces. This map clearly shows that how the connectivity to these institutions. You can see there are two grand trunk roads which connects the north versus the west and the central positions. One is called the Uttar Pada, and the other one is the yellow color is the Dakshina Pada. So the Uttar Pada is a grand trunk road, I would say, or you can say it's a highway which connects Takshashila with the Nalanda, and Nalanda to an extent, or the Bihar. Bihar is a land of Viharas. That's why the name it is derived from the Bihar. It's Viharas, learning centers, and also to the southern to Vindhyas, you have this Dakshina Pada. So the traders and scholars used to travel, and these traders would carry, and they are the messengers, and to say that if anyone wants to study, and they will be given information regarding that these universities about these universities, and a lot of scholars or the students get inspired or motivated to go and study there. And it's need not to be only the princess can get opportunity to go and study there. Even the lowest set of people were also given admission and got an opportunity to study, pursue their education. So the one of the important thing is that it is strategically located. As I said, even today it is a strategical location, and in those days also, because where the east and the west would meet, and the junctions of road network which connects Central Asia, West Asia, and Kashmir. That is the central point where Takshashila emerged as the learning seat in the world, or in our part. The Royal Highway that connects Takshashila to Pataliputra was precursor to the Grand Trunk Road. And this is the very important thing which is mentioned Royal Highway, because the kings and the princes from the Pataliputra, or even the Vindhyas, they used to use this Royal Highway to reach out to Takshashila for to pursue their education. And it is also connected to the other roadways, and the traders used to trade or the horses, gold, luxury textiles items, primarily mostly the precious stones. All these routes pass through this Takshashila from the Gangetic plains to the Achaemenid world. I would this is towards Europe, and that's a land route that which passes through the Takshashila. So it has assumed a significant location, and the university played an important role to witness such trade activities and other activities. The Aramic script that came to India through this path only, which influenced the Kharosthi script, which was used to trade and administration. So according to Marshall, the Kharosthi was derived at Takshashila. So this place had also given a language that called Kharosthi script that was written in this particular university. What are the most prominent schools, or the subjects that were taught in the Takshashila is the Vedas, arts. These are the mandatory courses that were taught to the students who join. They have to master grammar first, then literature, music, dance, and folklore. Besides their other activities, other Gurukul activities, they have to master this. Once they master this basic thing, they will be graduated to choose, or they will be asked to choose these any of these desired specialization. For instance, law or political economy, medicine, military sciences. These are the subjects, prominent subjects that were taught. Surgery, which is also taught. But these are the broader subjects. And if you look at these subjects, these are the subjects which was required to the society. So they are very clear that what are the courses that is required for the society, and that were taught, rather than the courses that has no meaning, which was also, so like today we have seen that some of the universities even teaching those outdated courses, even they are running the outdated syllabus, that to suit or to meet these requirements of different societies. Besides these subjects, they have to pursue adventurous sports, archery, hunting, elephant lore, and swimming, etc. These are the part of the courses to the students. And one interesting thing, which I found out from my research is that the students were given a holistic training and approach to life, and that happens that once not only they are testing this intelligence, the IQ, intelligent quotient, but also they were prepared, trained in the emotional quotient, and how they handle the emotions, and besides these intelligent quotients and other aspects like soft skills, and also everyone has been trained to pursue certain sort of passion with a great sense of devotion to the motherland. The admission process, if you look at it, it is very. I tried very hard to get these things. I was thinking that what could be the admission process of these universities. There were very less evidence to documentary evidence to prove, but some of the Western literatures scholars who have I have cited their work. Though those who have studied about this Takshashila, they were referred to this admission process, which was very fascinating to see how in those days the admission process was so rigorous and rational in accepting the students. As early as the students were admitted at the age of 16, that is why it's called the university. So the prince and princess who has done the basics in their respective kingdoms, they were allowed to pursue this the university from here. And there is no discrimination in admission process. There is no discrimination in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, based on the socioeconomic status or other criteria. And the teachers can start their courses on their own and admit the students without any centralized process and syllabus. And this is a very interesting and unique case. And I can correlate this approach to the new education policy which was launched recently and which is being implemented by the government, and which also emphasize on the student centric rather than the administration or the teacher centric education system. So and that's the reason that it could produce the scholars and the luminaries when you shift the focus to the student centric rather than the administrative centric or the teacher centric. And that's what we have been used to it, where certain people plan the entire subject, and we have no option, we have to study those subjects. They mostly the Brahmin youth princes, sons of rich merchants. They trekked from the cities of Gangetic Plain to complete their advanced education from here. And they are the most students, majority of them, they who wanted to pursue the higher education, and they were and they were all allowed to stay with the teacher, which means guru, and they have to pay and taught to stay in the campus. Whereas students from poor family were taught in the evenings, and the student had to do manual work in the household of the teachers. These are the mandatory. That's a part of their the education system. They have to do other works as well. So it's like that's a part and parcel of the Gurukul. It's not just the teacher-student relationship ends in the classroom, but it extends up to beyond the classrooms as well. Some of the most prominent scholars, we all know that Jyotipala, he's the commander-in-chief of the king of Benares. He mastered the military science, the warfare. He studied warfare from Takshashila. Jivika, we all know that he's the Bimbisara's physician who cured Buddha and learned medicines from Takshashila. So he's one of the eminent medicinal doctor, I would say. So he also studied from there. And Prasenjit, he's a king of Koshala, who too was associated with Buddha. He was also educated in Takshashila. Panini, we all know who has created, he has produced one of the greatest achievement in grammar. He was from Takshashila University. Kautilya, of course, the professor of political economy who taught and trained Chandragupta Maurya, he was also one of the legendary scholar from that Takshashila has produced. There are many, but I just could highlight the few. So to get a sense of idea that how this Takshashila University had produced such a legend, such a eminent scholars whose contribution is beyond any thing. In fact, the mathematics, the contribution to mathematics also, the Takshashila has also contributed to mathematics. In fact, the Pythagoras theorem was invented from Takshashila University. Finally, that what happened to Takshashila and what we can learn from Takshashila is that the Takshashila was destroyed by the white Huns who were nomadics, raided from Central Asia around 5th BCE. They destroyed, according to one evidence, that they destroyed this Nalanda University in the 5th C. So these Huns, these were the white Huns, they are barbarians, and they destroyed this Takshashila University in 5th C. And what we learned from that the university, the Takshashila, after the destruction, this area became a sort of once it was a thriving knowledge hub, turned out to be a battlefield or a region which has been now continued to be unstable, prone to conflict, and where even now today we can see that that trend is still continuing, given this Afghanistan conflict or even the instability in Pakistan that has become a source of instability even now. And that's because of this the vacuum that created by this Takshashila, um, which was lost in those periods. Now, when you talk about this related to the Kashmir, the glory of Kashmir, uh, as you see that the Kashmir used to be a fountainhead of knowledge in the Vedic periods. That all we all know that where knowledge emanated from Vedic knowledge. But over the period, what happens is afterwards, it also transformed itself. The region is transformed itself to emerge as a knowledge truest sense, the knowledge hub, to focus on other subjects like political economy, medicines. And that's the reason that the Takshashila played an important role in the region to an extent. And as long as the Takshashila was there, there was a sort of thriving activities which was happening, and that provided the stability of the region. So geopolitically speaking, that university also plays an important role in terms of bringing a stability and order in that particular region. And if you don't have such institutions, that will also lead to chaos and sort of these external raids and intrusions. So I'll sum it by saying that this is one of the universities which has been less emphasized on the and linked with the glory of Kashmir, and that there needs to be more research to be done on this part. And I look forward to hear more questions and answers. And once again, these are the references I have given, where my presentation was taken from. These references. And thank you very much. And I look forward to answer your queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jagan ji. Very interesting presentation and very informative. Now, you mentioned that Takshashila was almost in the POK side or Pakistan side, right? If you look at Pakistan's website, it's not there now. Some time ago, they had that. They claimed that origin of yoga actually is from Pakistan. Like that, they are taking any credit that that origin of education also started there. Or in no such claim by Pakistan or any acknowledgement about Takshashila.
See, this is the recent trend. Perhaps this is after 2013 when China-Pakistan Economic Corridor came. Pakistan has been facing this identity crisis. And the reason around 2016, I saw one international conference on Takshashila organized by the Chinese and giving the credits to Pakistan. We all know that where the origin of yoga, there is beyond doubt that it was even if it was invented, it must be founded in the Gangetic Plains. That we all know. Perhaps using these trade routes which I mentioned, that Uttar Pada, Dakshin Pada, it could have went across the other, outside the world, and that's how the Buddhism, where from here it went to the rest of the world using these two different trends. As far as the Pakistan appropriating Takshashila, there is a reason and an agenda for that, to show that their country is lacking. There's sort of a knowledge bankruptcy they are facing it. They cannot claim that such universities any sort of ancient linkages to prove that the Pakistan has established it. I remember recently one book was written. It said the title itself was very funny. The Pakistan's 5,000 years history. I was amazed to see how can Pakistan have a 5,000 years history. It is it is totally ridiculous to caption a book like that. But that's a trend. That's what they're doing it, and that I would blame our historians we have conveniently ignored to correlate and link the Takshashila with more emphasis on given Nalanda, and that is because of this Nalanda is sort of a Buddhist monastery and learning. But if you look at the Nalanda, if I compare the Nalanda with, of course, there is no doubt that Nalanda has its own heritage and other things, but I'm not going to compare. But when you compare the Nalanda and Takshashila, the Takshashila, you can say it is the actual university system which is established without any sort of other teachings. Whereas in Buddhism, in Nalanda, you have the monks, the monasterial life, not like a Gurukul system or a residential campus, what I mentioned in Takshashila. And that's what the ancient system that we have to revive, or we have to study on that. Unlike the Nalanda, which is like a monasterial, more of a monastery, Buddhist monasterial system. The second point that Pakistan is doing on that is that now it's want to show to the world that don't have any history. Tomorrow they will say if Takshashila is their own, then Barada king they will appropriate. That Barada is also Pakistani. They may come out with their statements or statements.
See, to the extent now, one of our speakers here, Ravindra Pandita, you probably would have heard about him. He's working
Yeah, I
on
know him.
Sharda. He made a lot of attempts to go to POK side and building a temple at Titwal, very close to LOC. So, any such thing to relate to Takshashila in India, or connection, or even naming after that, climbing that roots? Never heard such thing happening, right?
One linkage is since you have asked this question, the stones to build construct the temples taken from the Takshashila. That's what I mentioned. The word Takshashila means it's a city of cutting stones, where you get the quality stones to construct temples, which were taken from that side, that particular city. Perhaps that's the reason they could have selected that particular spot to construct the universities, because of the available of construction materials like stones. So there may be a reason that these stones could have been used to construct various temples in Kashmir, even the ancient temples.
So most of the students must have descended down to other parts of India, and that is what you would have seen, the knowledge base and expansion from what they would have gained there, right? But there is
Yep.
no traceability about where they learned, how they gained. That like one of the earliest universities are all focused more on the northern side.
Although it was focused on the northern side, but it used to attract or draw scholars from across even the southern part, to an extent in the eastern part. There were evidences that even the foreign scholars, all the way from the far eastern or even the far western Central Asia and other kingdoms, they were also there. That's what I mentioned about the Pythagoras theorem was. But after the destruction, we lost all the evidence. There's no evidence that we could have a strong substantial to prove that these are the list of scholars, although they used to have a habit of documenting. But the one other interesting thing is that the Ashoka Empire, uh, as a part of the Mauryan Empire, which invented the cities like the Srinagar was used to be as capital of the empire. Uh, so there is a sort of connection between the capital and as well as this university.
Let me see if I see some questions here. Maybe I'll just. Can you read this? The present day university should teach the Indian history too, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Just as we try to know about our ancestors, the present generation should be taught about the real history of ancient India. This is from Dr. Jnanam from Kumbakonam.
Yeah, I agree with him. The present generation should be taught about the ancient history. Uh, and one of the important thing that we need to study about the ancient knowledge system. That is very important now in today's context. We need to have our own method of teaching, our own pedagogical. We have to trace what is our own pedagogical system of education system, how knowledge was imparted and passed on to generation. When we had such a foolproof system which could able to survive more than centuries, and why do we have to appropriate this some of the subjects like few universities, if you go back and see that some of the subjects which were taught are redundant, and we just teach that to meet the requirement of somebody else needs or the market requirements. But what the society needs, that's what I found from not only in the Nalanda, the Takshashila University, even the other universities, there is a common thing. The subjects these universities had taken to teach are all unique, related to the local needs. And that largely served the society, being it in a politics or being it in the political economy or even the medicines or even the surgeries or even architecture sculptures. For instance, the Kanchipuram, the universities in Kanchi, which was there in the ancient system, or even the down south, some of the ancient universities in the Parvati Keshavapuram in present day Nagarkoil, which was one of the oldest universities, which was specialist on temple architecture and also the shipbuilding. So Takshashila has military warfare focusing on archery because that's the requirement, geographical, given the geographical location. Similarly, this university in South had also have a specialization on shipbuilding. So that's geographically what are the requirements in that particular region that the university used to teach them, those subjects.
I think you touched upon one point also. Outdated courses. I think you mentioned the current
Yeah.
universities right now they're offering, which I think relates to this. We're not covering the right courses. There is another interesting question. When so much systematic knowledge was in place, how they failed to anticipate invasion?
That's an interesting question because universities does not have a standing army to to guard them, and these destroyer were nomads, barbarians, not an organized army which could
Warfare.
pose a strong threat. It could have been like a mob violence, raiders raided one day and destroyed things, rather than a structured army which could march towards this university to destroy. Perhaps they uh, wouldn't. I mean, the university wouldn't have anticipated that we would be of any value that which we possess, because those days the raiders were not coming for knowledge or text or documents. They were coming for precious items like golds and other things, or the forts or the cities.
But anyway, all these are before Mughal invasion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, the another Sri R is asking another question. What is Government of India effort in branding Takshashila?
See, this is the important thing that we need to focus on Takshashila and appropriate. I mean, this is our own heritage, historical heritage. But what I see consistently, perhaps now things are changing now. We tend to think that I put it in the beginning that we tend to imagine or visualize the geographical map in the medieval or modern terms. Now, if you talk about Takshashila, people would think that we are talking about a place which is in Pakistan, but we don't see that we are talking about a university which was there in the ancient Bharat. So we need to rebrand and reinvent and focus on not only the temples which were in the other parts of the world, as well as these education institutions that has a strong bondage with our cultural history. And we need to reconnect and revive these traditions and rebranding itself to the broader our cultural connectivity.
I know, Professor, you are going to appear in our program again, and we are looking at the topics, and I'm not going to say that now, which is going to be very interesting with your PowerPoint presentation, very lively and very informative. And I will see if there are any questions. Otherwise, we can complete our presentation now, unless you want to say anything more.
I just want to
You,
add one more
I
point
just
that
wanted to ask you about, yours is the 36th in our series. You probably would have seen some of our presentations earlier. And if you look back at all that Kashmir series, they're more like a research material now. A lot of information, eminent scholars made presentations and covered most of the topics. I think we'll be slowly moving into the future, what needs to be done next. As you appear on media and covering NATO And the Ukraine war, constantly I see you most sought after. What do you think about the future? This part.
I think the future, the India is going to be the what you would say the axis of stability. I would say in the entire region, or to an extent, um, uh, if you, that is very much visible now. We are surrounded by neighboring countries facing the political turmoil and economic crisis, yet we are able to. Um, we have a stable government and a stable economic institutions and economic performance. That is a symbol that we are going to play or being an important player in the global politics. And for that to have that, we need to revive our ancient or the old knowledge system, or our own the indigenous knowledge system, and that's the only way out. We can see how the knowledge system, the borrowed knowledge system, that doesn't suit us, and that we have seen that, and that's the reason that most of the countries are now facing the crisis. In that context, that we need to reinvent and revive this indigenous knowledge system. When I mean the indigenous knowledge system, we need to really look into that, our study our ancient university system, what sort of courses they taught and why they have chosen that particular subjects, and what are the systems in terms of the university governance and the choice, and how they could able to produce the luminaries, legendaries. Our university system, when you talk about even the sciences, we are aiming about only the Nobel Prize, grabbing the Nobel Prize. That should not be our objectives. Our science, the research in the science and the scientific field should not only aim to target, to grab this Nobel Prize. Rather than they should strive to, achieve some excellence, like what our ancestors like Panini or the Sushruta or Jivika the work. So that's how we need to produce such sort of works.
Very interesting. Thank you, Professor Jagannathan ji.
Thank you, thank you very
We
much.
look forward to seeing you again in our future programs.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Namaskaram. Thank you.
Once again, we want to thank all our viewers. Our subscribership is always on the increase. Please stay tuned to our program every Saturday. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be continuing up to July. We have speakers booked and there are very interesting topics coming up. We want to thank Kanji Mutt for kamakodi.tv live coverage, Facebook and YouTube channels. And once again, we want to thank our leading Tamil newspaper Dinamalar for timely coverage. Every week, they give news about our Kashmir Cultural Heritage Program, translated into Tamil, and it should cover large audience from South. We are also trying to get the Tamil versions of all the audios, which somebody is working on that from Kanchi Mutt, and we'll keep you informed. We also thank VDSP for streaming support that they are consistently providing us. Once again, thank you all, and stay tuned for our next Saturday. That will be announced sometime next week. J.J. Shankara, Hare Shankara.